Hello and welcome back to the Watford Way podcast. Today I'm joined by Finn. Finn, how are you doing today?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Of course, it's currently the international break. Are you a fan of international fixtures, Finn? I'm not really a big England follower myself. Of course, I follow them in the big major tournaments like the World Cup, the Euros, etc. But when we're playing teams like Andorra or random teams like Afghanistan, for example, I'm not really a massive fan of watching England. To be honest, what about you?
No, I mean, I watched the World Cup and the Euros. That's about it, really. I mean, like you
Yeah,
say, I mean, the Nations League was okay. I don't even know
yeah.
if they still do the Nations League.
No, I don't know. I don't think they do actually. Well, I think we got knocked out of it the last one we was in, which was a bit disappointing.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not really. I'm not. I don't follow England unless it's a tournament. I'll say that much.
Okay. That's good. That's good. But today's lots to talk about. Of course, the transfer window closed at the end of August, so we'll discuss all of Watford's incoming transfers. And the most recent Watford game was, of course, Coventry City 3, Watford 3. So Watford finally getting back on the score sheet in the Championship. And I'm sure me and Finn will touch on the terrible defending that happened in that game as well. We'll discuss Blair and Ismail's style of play and whether we can see that style of play being influenced on the team in his first games in charge of Watford. And then we'll quickly look at the September fixtures as well to see if we've got a tough run of games coming up in September. But we'll start with the transfer window, Finn. Before I get your thoughts on the window and a rating out of 10, I'll run you through Watford's incoming transfers. So it was Mileta Rajovic coming in from Kalmar FF, Tom Ince obviously coming in from Reading, Reece Healy coming in from Toulouse in France, Jake Livermore, as you know, Finn coming in from West Brom on a free transfer. And then our two loanees are Jamal Lewis and Georgie Chakvedadze. So Finn, in terms of the incomings, are you relatively happy with the business Watford have done, or are there potentially other positions you would have maybe looked to have gotten in the final few days? I know a few people have said centre back was a position they'd like to strengthen in defensive midfield as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the perfect transfer window by any means, but you've got to look at it as a factor. We have no money at all. I'm surprised we spent nearly £1 million on Rajovic. But yeah, it's an okay window. I probably would have looked to have maybe loaned in another centre back, or I know Axel Twanzebe and Phil Jones are free agents at the moment. I might be looking at one of them too.
Yeah, I've seen a few people, give them a shout maybe, and maybe not Phil Jones because obviously his injury record is pretty poor by all accounts. But Axel Twanzebe, I'd definitely take on a free transfer.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I definitely would have got another six as well because the fact we're playing a centre back there who's better than the only out and out six we've got in Jake Livermore is a bit poor. But yeah, we've got no money, and taking that into account, I think it's an all right window. I was surprised we only got one player from Udinese, to be honest. I thought we'd have got a couple at
Well,
least.
yeah, and I suppose with Martins, it's not really a new player either, is it? It's just a returning loan, really. So yeah, a
Speaking
little bit
of
disappointing in that aspect.
speaking about Martins as well, I'm going to be very sad to see him leave at the end of the season when he does go. Because
Well, I'm hoping we'll buy him, fingers crossed, on a permanent deal at the end of the season. But obviously, I'm sure that depends on how successful Watford are in the Championship this season. I just want to get your thoughts on Mileta Rajovic because, of course, he played in the recent game against Coventry City, bagging 2 goals. Finn, Watford's new number 9. You mentioned they're coming in for a fee of around £1 million from a relatively unknown league. I know a lot of us had to do quite a bit of research before he joined Watford because it's not a league that we're particularly that interested in or have heard of before. What did you make of his full Watford debut against Coventry? 2 goals. I thought they were taken quite well. He was much more physical than back in Bio was, in my opinion. So, what did you make of his full debut against Coventry, Finn?
I thought it was fantastic, to be honest. I mean, he came on the game before. I can't remember who it was against. It was Blackburn, wasn't it?
It was Blackburn. Yeah, he came on for the
Um,
last about half an hour, 25 minutes.
yeah, and he didn't really do anything. But again, he's a sort of striker where if you feed him, he'll score. He's not one to create. He's more of a Haaland type player. I don't want to compare him to Haaland because that's
Well, he's
stupid.
our Danish Haaland, Finn. You could call him that.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
the
but no,
shite Danish Watford Haaland.
yeah, no, he does. He looks good, to be honest. There was he had a couple of decent touches in build up as well. And he took
Did,
his
yeah.
goals as well as they could have. And I know some people are saying, "Oh, they're just tap-ins," but you've got to be there to score them. And I think strikers in the past, Andre Gray, would have missed them. So
Yes.
yeah. Another thing about Rovic's second goal as well, I think it was really unselfish of Bayo to knock it back to him, because I know if I was a striker at a club and they've just paid £1 million for another striker and I'm in that situation, I'm shooting 100% of the time, try and get
Well,
my
to be fair, Finn, I think we've got to give a lot of credit to Bayer there because his work rate to close down the defender initially, I think for me, showed there in Ismail's style of play in a nutshell, really. The high press was very evident in that situation. And as you said, he won the ball back and, yeah, very unselfish from Bayo to lay it off to Rajovic. Tom Ince is the next player on the list, Finn. It's taken him a while to gain his fitness. I think he had a minor injury issue before the start of the season, so we haven't really seen a lot of him so far in a Watford shirt. But in that Coventry game, he did pick up his first assist for Rajovic, his first goal as well. And against Blackburn as well, really, really good in his short cameo in that game. So Tom Ince, I think, was a player, in my opinion, who, when we first signed him, I was a little bit disappointed by due to maybe his age and the previous club he was at and the fact that they did get relegated. But I think in my head, that was probably a naive thing to think. And so far from what I've seen, I think Tom Ince looks like a really quality player on the ball, his delivery, his set piece quality as well, Finn. I think it's something for Watford fans to get really excited about.
Yeah, he looks like a good player. He played well against Coventry, obviously, like you said, picking up an assist. And I didn't realise I was watching. I don't know if you remember Ryan Porteous's debut for us. I was watching that game, and obviously Tom Ince was playing for Reading.
Okay.
He looked like their best player. I'm just going off the highlights, but he looked like their best player. And like you say, I was a bit underwhelmed when I won't say disappointed because it was the first transfer fee we paid. I was
Yeah.
ecstatic. But yeah, I was a little bit underwhelmed. But he's going on to prove me wrong so far, and I hope he keeps on doing that.
Absolutely agree with that. The next player to talk about is Reece Healy, who I think for me, Finn, is a very interesting one to discuss because actually on transfer deadline day, there was rumours on Twitter pretty much. So I don't know how concrete the rumours were, but it looked like Reece Healy was maybe going to leave the club on loan or permanently, which was interesting considering that we'd obviously signed him in the summer. It just seems like Valérien Ismaël at the moment doesn't maybe trust him enough or doesn't think he's recovered fully from his injury to give him that chance in the first team. Is that how you'd view the situation at the moment, Tim?
I've heard so many different reasons for why Healy isn't playing. It could be any number of them. I've heard that he's had a setback on his injury. He's just not recovered from his injury. Val doesn't rate him. He's fallen out with Val. Um, someone said, someone who claimed to be in the know at Watford claimed that Reece Healy had burst into Valérien Ismaël's office and gone, "Why am I not playing?" And I that is one reason for him not starting that I do not believe, but it could be any
No.
number of things. But hopefully, when he is fully recovered from his injury, if that's what it is, he can be more of an impact. But like we just mentioned, we've now got Bayo, Rajovic, and Healy. And personally, I'd put him at the bottom of that three in terms of who's going to start games. For me, it would go Rajovic, Bayo, Healy.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, no, it's a strange one. It's a strange one. The fact he's not played has he played a competitive minute for us?
Well, he played. Well, the funny thing was, Finn, he played in the Carabao Cup defeat away at Stevenage.
Oh yeah.
Then, yeah, as you know, he obviously missed a penalty in the shootout, which was very unfortunate. And that's been the only competitive appearance that he's made so far for Watford. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. I think for me, he's just a different profile of striker compared to Bayo and Rajovic. Obviously, Bayo and Rajovic, when you look at them physically, they look a lot taller, a lot stronger in their actual build, whereas Healy looks a bit quicker. Looks like he can run in behind. And I think when he's fit and hopefully firing on all cylinders, he can offer maybe something a bit different in this Watford team. And maybe we could play two up top. I know at the end of the Coventry game, we ended up playing with Bayo and Rajovic in a two up top, which was good to watch in the short time they played together. So yeah, it's a shame he's obviously had this setback, what we believe to be a setback, but hopefully he gets fit over this international break. And yeah, I think for me, just offers something different in that front line. So I'm excited to see Healy when he eventually makes his first appearance in the Championship. We'll touch on Jake Livermore, Finn, because we obviously discussed him in the last podcast. He's just not really hit the ground running yet, has he? He looks a bit slow, a bit sluggish. He doesn't look that fit. And as you mentioned earlier, Francisco Sierralta, who is a centre back, is starting in that DM spot ahead of Jake Livermore, which is good for Sierralta because I think he is a quality player at times. But for Jake Livermore not getting this Watford team at all ahead of centre back in that position, is that concerning for you?
He's just a bit crap, really, isn't he, Jake Livermore? He doesn't really do anything. He tries to tackle and he tries to pass. He's he was a good player. Everyone knows he was a good player, but he's been at West Brom for 6 years. I completely forgot he
He's
existed.
he's even an England international.
Yeah, don't think he'd be very close to that anymore. But
No,
he's a decent cover option. If we'd have signed him and another starting DM, I'd have been happy because
yeah,
then if we sign a good DM, it makes the centre backs better, makes the midfield better, and it gives us more cover in centre back because, like you said, we don't have many centre backs. Um, but it would free up Sierralta to be our backup, one of our backup centre backs, and we've got two centre backs for each position and two DMs, which would be I'd be perfectly happy with that. But I find it almost a bit baffling that I don't know if you noticed George Abbott was recalled from his loan recently.
I did
Yeah,
notice that. I wasn't sure whether that was for first team cover or I think he played in the last under 21s match. I don't know whether because I think they struggled in their first couple of games of 21. So I don't know whether it was to come back to them and kind of help strengthen them, or as you're probably going to go on to mention, is it to provide even more first team cover in that centre back position?
I will say I hope we have something lined up for centre back, whether it's a free agent or whatever, because to have our two centre backs, I'll say this: the starting two centre backs, Porteous and Hoot, have been fantastic this season, bar Coventry. But other than that, they've been fantastic. But the minute one of them gets injured, it's either George Abbott or Matty Pollock that play there, and that doesn't fill me with confidence.
Yeah. Does that for you, Finn, signal in your head a mistake to let Craig Cathcart go? Do you think that maybe we should have kept him just as that bit of experience cover? Because we've just recently seen him signed, I think, for a club in Belgium. If I'm correct in thinking that, I think it's Belgium. Was it a mistake in letting him go, or do you think that was essential as part of the clear out process?
I don't think it was a mistake letting him go. I think it was a mistake not replacing him.
Yeah.
Because I love Craig Cathcart. He's been a great servant for the club for years, but he wasn't up to the standard anymore, and he needed to go. But we really should have brought someone in to replace him.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. And as Finn mentioned earlier, there are free agents available. Axel Tuanzebe, Phil Jones, albeit they're not that glamorous. There are free agents available out there. So if Watford choose to do so, they can bring someone in. But yeah, at the moment, it looks like our centre back options are Ryan Porteous, Wesley Hoot, Matty Pollock, George Abbott if needed, and obviously Francisco Sierralta could drop back into that position as well. And the last two incomings we'll discuss are Jamal Lewis, who is yet to feature for Watford so far this season, and Georgie Chakvedadze. Jamal Lewis, Finn, is that a signing you are excited about? Because when he first came into the club, I for one was very, very excited coming in from Newcastle in the Premier League. Obviously, did really well at Norwich in his time there as well. A left back, a left wing back, however you want to see his position. But he's not played for Watford yet, and we don't really know what's happening with him either. So, are you excited about the signing? But are you also a little bit concerned that it could become another Courtney House situation where we sign a Premier League defender and then they're not fit for the entire season?
I really hope it's not, because I do like Jamal Lewis as a player. I liked him when he was at Norwich, and I liked him at Newcastle to start with. I was really happy when we pulled the signing off. I really hope he gets over whatever injury this is. And he's got 2 weeks now with the international break. So if he's not back for the first game after the international break, that's when I start to be concerned.
Yeah,
But a back four in isolation, if you look at a back four of Jamal Lewis, Wesley Hoot, Ryan Porteous, and Ryan Andrews, it's a very good championship defence.
absolutely.
So it's just a matter of keeping them four. Maybe not so much Ryan Andrews because we have Jeremy Ngakia. But if we keep them four or five fit, I think we should be fine in the defence. But yeah, in terms of Jamal Lewis, I was really happy when we signed him because I think he's a very good player.
I think we've got an option to buy in that deal as well. So obviously, depending on how Watford do and how well Jamal Lewis does, Watford do have the option to bring him in on a permanent transfer at the end of his loan if we choose to do so. And the last thing coming for Watford in this transfer window was Georgie Chakvedadze, another exciting attacking signing coming in from KAA Gent over in Belgium as well. Again, Finn, I think this is a very positive move for Watford. I think in the brief cameos he's made so far, he's looked very exciting. He always looks to turn away from his defender. I think in the first debut he made in the Watford shirt, he spun away from his defender, got his shirt pulled, and yeah, that got the crowd off his feet straight away, really. And I think he's one of them players where, you know, when he's running at goal, the crowd start to get excited. And I think Watford have lacked a player like that for a very long time. I think the last player who did that really for me was someone like Gerard Deulofeu, who was just really, really exciting to watch. So Finn, Georgie Chakvedadze, again, another player on loan with an option to buy. Is that a signing you're happy with?
Yeah, I really like him as a player. I watched him a couple of years ago, not live, obviously. I had an interest in him because it was lockdown and I was bored. Yeah, ever since then, he's a sort of player. He gets the ball and he does everything at full speed. There's never any. He doesn't slow down. He doesn't stop. He gets the ball and he goes towards the goal. It baffles me that he's not started yet. To be honest, I think.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think there's two players we've discussed today who really are pushing for starts. Now, obviously, Tom Ince made his first start against Coventry, and I personally think Tom Ince should stay in the team for our game against Birmingham City after the international break. And as you mentioned, Georgie Chakvedadze has made some brief cameo appearances off the bench so far this season. Is he a player, Finn, who you would start? And if he does start, who would you replace him for in the current Watford team? Because there's a lot of competition for places at the moment. Would you put him in midfield, or would you maybe take Matthias Martins out and put him in that position? How would you include Georgie Chakvedadze in this Watford team?
It's a difficult one because, like you say, I'd say his best natural position is probably as a left winger or maybe a 10. But like you say, we can't drop Martins after the last few weeks. I think he's been incredible. So if I was to get him in the team, I think I'd have a midfield of Sirauta, Loser, and Chakvedadze, and maybe tell Loser to sort of let Chakvedadze do his thing. And I know Ishmael's been telling Loser he wants him further up the field. I think we can sacrifice some of that for Chakvedadze. And I think if it came to it, I think he could be a decent 8 as well. Um, so that could let loser loose a little bit. But yeah, he's a very good player, and it's a good problem to have, not knowing which players to start. To be honest, but yeah, he looks like a really exciting player, and I hope we can keep him fit.
Absolutely agree with that. And that sums up Watford's incomings for the 2023-24 summer transfer window. We'll move on to Watford's recent game away at Coventry now, and it finished Coventry 3, Watford 3. And we've mentioned Rajvic scoring 2 goals on his full Watford debut, and Matthias Martins picking up his second goal of the season, Finn. Firstly, in terms of the overall performance in attack, were you happy with what you saw? Obviously, Watford hadn't scored since the opening day against QPR, winning 4-0. So yeah, I think, Finn, we were just all delighted to see Watford scoring some goals again, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to be pleased with the attack after scoring 3 goals against a team that should really be up there in terms of the playoff push this season. So that in itself is good. And it's weird to think if you just said to me 5 games into the season we've scored 7 goals, I'd be more than happy. That'd be perfect. And then if you'd then told me it'd all been in 2 games, I would not have been so happy. So it's a difficult one because we know the players we've got have got enough quality to create and score goals. It's just harnessing it and finding a system that works for them. The defence, on the other hand, has been it left a lot to desire. It's weird though because I'd say Porteous and Hoot have been our best 2 players this season up until Coventry, and then they both just sort of weren't anymore that good. I mean, Hoot's own goal, it is ridiculous. It is.
Well, yeah, let's discuss that straight away, Finn. I mean, for you, what happened in that situation? Was it lack of communication from Daniel Batman, or was it pure incompetence from Wesley Hoot? You know, playing a blind pass back to Batman. Obviously, if Batman goes to dive and save it with his hands, that would be a free kick to Coventry in the Watford penalty area, which is quite a rare occurrence in football. So that's obviously why Batman didn't attempt to save it with his hands. But I think for me, it's just for someone of Hoot's experience, I don't think it's acceptable at all. Hopefully, it's just a one-off, and we won't see that happen again. But yeah, it wasn't very nice to watch for him, was it?
Oh god, no! It's like it happened in slow motion, watching them all trickling through. It was horrible. But I will say it's 95% on Hoot. Um, Someone of his stature and his experience, he's what? He's 29, 30 now.
Yeah, it's 29 going on 30.
He's
Yeah,
been playing football at the highest level for years. You can't be playing a blind back pass to your goalkeeper on your weak foot, not knowing exactly where he is. I mean, I'd have been annoyed at him if Backman had just stopped it.
the
Um,
thing is, Finn, I think for me, he wasn't even, watching the replay several times now, as I'm sure most Watford fans have done. He wasn't even under, a big amount of pressure from the Coventry City attack. He had a lot of time on the ball. We could have, played it upfield and it could have gone out for a throw-in, which wouldn't have been great, but it would have been better than an own goal. I think that was the most frustrating thing for me. This wasn't even under a lot of pressure, really. And that's been his main strength this season, playing out from the back. He's got a superb left foot. But yeah, he just let Watford down in that situation.
yeah, I completely understand what you're talking about. And even if he was under pressure, just hoof it out for a throw in. We'd much rather that than an own goal.
Absolutely.
I cannot get my head around it. The one thing I will say though is, on Backman's part, and I'm by no way saying it's his fault at all. But on his part, I think he could have dived. I think he could have done a bit better. I'd much rather Coventry had an indirect free kick there because it was, judging on Backman's position, it would have been difficult for them to do anything from that position. And I'd rather that than having to watch that who own goal on replay every single week.
Yeah.
Oh, it baffles me. It's an interesting goal. I'll say that much.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the other, there's two controversial other goals in the game as well. I think we'll leave the Daniel Batman free kick because I think the consensus amongst most Watford fans is that he should have done maybe a little bit better. It kind of looked like he dived over the ball. I think the free kick itself was a good strike and fair play to the Coventry City player who scored. But yeah, I think the general consensus was he could have done a little bit better in that situation. But I'm not going to put the total blame on Batman there because I just think it was, a decent free kick. But I think the other controversial goal, Finn, was Coventry City's third goal, where Ryan Porteous went down after what looked like a elbow to the face or some sort of facial collision. It looked very soft initially. He obviously stayed down and Coventry City went on to score. What's your take on their third goal?
I think it's a foul, to be honest, but I can understand why it's not been given. Porteous has almost done it to himself. The amount of times we've seen him have the slightest brush of the face and he's gone, and fallen over and stopped defending, and it's been given. So I think that could have probably been in the ref's mind when he saw that. So I can understand why it's not been given, but I do think it was a foul. Um, I wouldn't go as far to say it's controversial. If you show a neutral that goal, they're going to say it's 50-50. But I don't
Yeah,
know. It's a difficult one because it's a good finish. But
yeah,
again, it's not just on Porteous. There was no one tracking the runner.
no,
It's a difficult one. I, I'd go. I'd say that the first goal was more avoidable than the second one. The
yeah.
third one, sorry, because going back to the free kick, yes, it's a decent strike, but it's like Backman dived in slow motion. If he hadn't have saved the penalty, I would have been absolutely berating him for it. Um, yeah, it's a difficult one. It is a difficult one because that if it had gone against us, say if it was Watford scoring that goal and it had been called for a foul, I would be very, very angry. So I can understand why it's not been given. But yeah, it's a difficult one. It was a game full of controversy.
It absolutely was. And ultimately, Watford come away with a point, which, in the grand scheme of things, is all right, albeit obviously we've not won since opening day against QPR. So hopefully Watford can go to pick up some more points in September. And talking about September and our fixtures coming up, I'll read them to you now. So we've got Birmingham City at home, West Brom away, Leeds United, West Brom at home, sorry, Leeds United away, and then Middlesbrough at home. So Birmingham City, West Brom, Leeds, and Middlesbrough. Some tough games in there, Finn, actually. I think Birmingham City are unbeaten so far in the Championship this season alongside Preston North End. So that'll be a tough test for Watford. Middlesbrough haven't had the best starts. Leeds, we obviously know the quality in their squad. And West Brom, obviously, Finn, you know a lot about them as well. So how many points do you think Watford will pick up out of them 4 games? 2 home, 3 home, actually, 1 away there. So yeah, Watford having the advantage with having the majority of the games at home. So yeah, how many points do you think Watford will pick up in September?
I think probably 4 or 6, maybe. I think Blues are a very good side at the moment. They've made some very good signings this summer, and they're playing well. Obviously, I live around Birmingham, so I know a lot of Blues fans, and they're really happy with their start to the season. West Brom, they've had. There's been a couple of games this season. They were worried that their manager was gonna leave, because he wasn't backed in the summer. But
Okay.
we know that they've got some quality players. They could be dangerous.
Well,
Leeds,
they've got former Watford midfielder Nathaniel Chalobah, who isn't having the best time there right now, I believe, from what I've seen on Twitter.
yeah, I've heard the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not much of a fan of him out there. So, yeah. Um, but yeah, West Brom do have quality. They've got quality players and they've got a fantastic manager. So there's always a threat that they'll hurt us. As for Leeds, that again, quality players. We know they're quality, but they've not had the greatest start to the season. A bit like us, we've got the quality. Leeds have got the quality, but both teams have just failed to really light the world on fire. Um, who is it? Who are we playing?
So we've
Is
got
it?
Birmingham at home, West Brom at home, Leeds United away, and then end of the month is Middlesbrough at Vicarage Road.
Yeah, Middlesbrough again is another weird one. Last season they probably were unlucky not to win the playoffs. Um, Good side, but like you say, it's not gone well for them this season. Other than Blues, it feels like the rest of this month is going to be full of teams who could be very good, but just haven't been this season for
Mm.
whatever reason. So yeah, I'd say 4 to 6 points, maybe 7, is a realistic expectation.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Watford could potentially pick up 2 wins this month. I think Middlesbrough are definitely a game that Watford should target. You mentioned Birmingham; they've signed some fantastic players this summer. West Brom are an interesting one because they've been in the Championship for a few seasons now, and again, all the teams in that list, I think we can agree possess the quality to beat us. But yeah, there's an interesting mix of teams there. I'll agree with you. I think Watford could maybe pick up 6 or 7 points out of them, and I think that would be a decent return for Valérien Ismaël. And I think that sums up Watford's season as a whole. Really, I'm not expecting Watford to challenge for the league title at all. I'm not really expecting us to even challenge for the player positions. I just want Watford to have a decent Championship season for once, and not feel like we're watching a team of players who can't be bothered for whatever reason, or really where their heads aren't in the game. So Birmingham, West Brom, Leeds, Middlesbrough. I think Watford will pick up 6 points from that run of fixtures. Finn, very briefly, just discussing Valérien Ismaël's style of play since he's been at the club. Is that something that you've seen evidently throughout the first few fixtures he's been here for? Because I think the high line is very evident. I think Daniel Batman playing in that sweeper keeper role is even more evident. And then we obviously mentioned earlier Bio chasing down the Coventry City defender in that high press, if you will. Have you been impressed with what you've seen from Valérien Ismaël so far?
I have been, to be honest. I think for the first time, possibly since Xavi, we look like a well-coached, well-drilled team that actually look like. I can't think of a player in my head right now that's I've watched this season that looks like they don't want to be here. Um, the new signings like Rajovic, when they've scored, they've gone absolutely mental. So yeah, we look like a well-drilled team and a well-coached team in a system that I like. Like you say, I'm not too bothered if Watford get in the playoffs or not this season. I just want to watch a team that is fun to watch and look like they want to play for Watford. Yeah. If we don't get into the playoffs, so what? If we don't get into the playoffs and it's been another season of watching players that look like they don't care, can't be bothered, know they're leaving in the summer, so who cares? That sort of thing, that would be what annoys me. But yeah, Val's style's very evident, the high press, backman playing out from the back, slow builder, big striker. Yeah, it's something I'm looking forward to watching for the rest of the season.
Absolutely agree with that. And that brings us to the end of our podcast today. Where can everyone find you on socials, Finn?
Watford FC Hub on Instagram and just Finn Onans on Twitter.
Thank you, Finn. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you so much for watching. We really do appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, leave a like on the video, and leave a comment with your score predictions for the Watford fixtures in September. I'll repeat, we're playing Birmingham City, West Brom at home, Leeds United away, and Middlesbrough at home. So hopefully Watford will win all of them games. But if not, I'm sure there'll be lots to talk about anyway in our next podcast. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.